Hello, everyone. Welcome to School After Hours podcast, where we talk about all things related to out of school time programming and education. I am your host, Jay Lee, and today we have the distinct pleasure of chatting with Miss Gina Prosh. Gina is an award-winning writer with a rich background in education. During this show, we'll discuss the concept behind her series, Holly's Choice, and why emotional resilience and joy are important to cultivate in children. Join us as we dive deep into Gina's inspiring journey from a college-level English educator to a children's book writer. Whether you're an educator, a parent, or just someone passionate about positive storytelling, you won't want to miss this episode. But before we get into this interview, my agency, School After Hours Consulting and KSC Leadership Consulting, are coming together to host a workshop series that's going to help program managers and program directors plan the best summer programming they've had in forever. We have amazing facilitators coming together the week of April 14th to April 18th, that Monday to Friday, during your lunch hour to do wonderful workshops with you that are going to be helping you plan for program logistics, creating inclusive spaces, facilitating engaging activities, and giving you some tips on behavior management. If you're interested in learning more about this, there will be a link in the show notes, and registration is open right now. Yes, registration is open as we speak. So as soon as you see this, make sure that you register. Okay? Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and start the show. So, let's go ahead and jump into our conversation. We have Miss Gina Prosh here with us today. Hi, Gina. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm so happy to have this conversation with you. So, let's go ahead for the people that may not know a little bit about you. Right. Let's go ahead and give them some information. So go ahead and tell them a little bit about yourself, Gina, and how you got into writing.
So I started out in education. I was teaching English at the college level in a small liberal arts school in South Carolina. And at that time, my husband and I decided that we were going to work on a comic book and comic strip together. So we did that. And that's kind of how I got started in writing. My husband had always been interested in writing. He'd always written, but I was kind of late to the game. So after I left academics, I was working entrepreneurial thing, doing a lot of website development and writing a lot of nonfiction stuff, writing for magazines, writing for brochures, that sort of writing. And I really missed the fiction and telling the stories. And because it's fun to make up stories and that sort of thing. So that's kind of how I ended up here. The kids' books came out of a project that I worked on, kind of a spontaneous project. It started in 2012 called This Day's Joy, where every day I was coming up with one positive good thing. And I kept myself accountable by posting it to social media, posted on my Facebook, just something about the day. And as I was doing that, I realized that it would be a great thing for kids to start to learn these same sorts of behaviors rather than coming to it, as an older person where you've got these patterns of behavior that you have to break. If you can start to build better patterns of behavior in young kids, hey, that's a win. So how do you go about doing that kind of thing? And so the Holly's Choice series has come about as a result of that kind of leaning in and being an active participant in positive emotions and helping kids to do that.
That is great. And in the series, your first series was Joy. You find what you look for. So what was the process behind that? And, of all the things, why start with joy?
So the Joy book came really specifically out of the This Day's Joy project and trying to move that into a kid's realm. The books that followed came because they said, hey, this is a good book. Do you have anything else? And I'm like, yes, I do. But the storyline for This Day's Joy is actually based on something that happened. We were taking our kid to the YMCA for swimming lessons. And this red pickup truck jumps in front of our car, and we swerve, we miss it. But for Wyatt, he decided that everybody who drove a red pickup truck was somehow like out to get us or something. So he would go on high alert anytime we're out on the roads. He's like, there's a pickup truck, there's a red pickup truck. And so that story kind of becomes central to what's going on in Joy, You Find What You Look For, because Holly, she's had a really bad day, and her mom asks her, look for the red cars on the way home. Just something to keep her mind off of all of the stuff. But when she gets home, her mom says, hey, how many yellow cars and trucks did you count? And she's like, I didn't count any. There weren't any. And her mom was like, no, actually, there were yellow cars and trucks, but you weren't looking for them. And so as the story progresses, Holly realizes that maybe in her day that she thought was so terrible and bad, there were some good things that happened, but she just kind of missed those because she wasn't looking for them. And I think that that's one of the things that happens in everybody's life. You stub your toe and you can spend your entire day walking through your life talking about, how bad your day was because you stubbed your toe. And it's like, literally that's a 10-second event that you're going to allow to spread out over 24 hours. What if you don't look for that? What if you start to look for better things? Because if you start to look for better things, your days actually do get better.
Right. And I feel like that's important, especially when you're talking about mindset and learning how to associate things with the positives, right, instead of the negatives. I feel like that's really, really important. You find what you are looking for, just like you stated in the title. So looking for the positive things, I feel like can be especially important during this time and everything that's going on. Looking for the positive instead of everything drowning out, your best to drown out the negatives that's going on outside.
Exactly. And, as a parent, I think one of the things that you can do, really, it's about those little small things and going small. If you're out and, you find a quarter in the parking lot, make a big deal out of the fact that you found a quarter. That's free money that you picked up off the ground. That's a great thing. If somebody opens the door for you, take time to tell your kids, hey, say thank you to the nice person who just opened the door for me. If you're in traffic and somebody lets you in, make sure that you're saying, hey, look at this nice person who let me in. If you start to look for those things, you're telling your kids that there are people that are out there in the world that are doing nice things, helpful things, good things all around. And if you do the exact same thing and start to look for any way that you might have been shortchanged or slighted or whatever, that's what you're going to look for. But you get to the day and you're a whole lot happier, and the world is a whole lot better place. You've looked for those good things.
Exactly. So how did you come up with the concept of the Holly series, but also like the specific thing for each book that you're coming out with?
So the series Holly is actually based on my great aunt that I had. And so her name was Holly. Well, actually her name was Helen, but she always went by Holly. So it's a long story. Anyway, she was just like a happy, joy-filled person because that was the way she chose to live her life. And if you spent time with her, you realize that it really was a deliberate choice. I mean, she experienced all kinds of difficulties and hardships in her life, but that never ruled the day. And so when I named the character, that was kind of a hat tip to my Aunt Holly there. But then with the idea of hope, it was, so often we want life to be easy, and dang, I've never found it that way. So I'm like, how do you communicate that idea to kids that hard work is part of the deal? You have to work hard. But if you do work hard, good things can happen. And so as I was trying to come up with something for this idea of a hope-filled life, I was like, okay, what could hope stand for? And I'm playing with a lot of things. And I realized, well, hard work is the foundation of all. If you want to be hopeful about your future, you're going to have to do something in order to make that happen. If you are optimistic, and you decide that you can do something, that optimism will carry you through, but when you are working hard, because hard work isn't always the most fun thing that you can do. And you're going to have to persevere. So H, hard work, O, optimism, P, perseverance. You're going to have to keep at it, because whether it's being a little kid and struggling to learn times tables, or struggling to figure out the difference between the B and the D and the P and the Q. I mean, who came up with those letter shapes? It's like, which way is that tail going? It's which side's it on? It's tremendously confusing. They could have come up with a better system. But as you're doing it, if you keep working at it, you're going to get better. And so the E is that eventually you get there. And so that was the idea that I wanted to communicate. And so then I had to come up with a story that would allow that idea to come out.
Awesome. I think that is so cool. Like, to have someone in your life that models that behavior, that attitude, that, that level of calm in choosing that positive mindset, having that modeled for you, and then you're following that model and writing a book about it to inspire other people to, in spite of the difficulties that you may face. Yes, instead of feeling down about it or letting it defeat you, take in consideration the other options for you to keep your positivity, for you to keep your positive mindset. So I think that is so cool.
Well, it keeps you from being a victim. If you say, I am an agent of hope in my own life, and I'm going to do this for me, you're not waiting for somebody else to bestow something on you. You're going out and getting it. You're trying to achieve it through the work that you're doing. And I think that can become a tremendously empowering thing for young kids to start to see. One thing that I think is important for adults is to not be so afraid to fail in front of their kids, but actually maybe even choose to do stuff that you really stink at in front of your kids, so that they can see you struggle. Because if, again, it's that whole modeling behavior thing, if you're telling them, oh, you need to work hard, but everything that you do comes, it's like, oh, I just do things that I succeed at. If you've never thrown pottery pots, why don't, take a pottery class with your kid and be bad together, because nobody throws great pottery pots at the beginning. You learn how to do that over time. And if you do that, then you can model that behavior, that you don't quit just because the first time you really don't do such a great job at that.
I know, that's right. Oh, gosh. Well, this is a great moment for us to take a break. So everyone, take a moment, get up, stretch your legs, go get a snack, go get some water, come back with us in less than 5 seconds. All right, see you in a few. Are you a program provider or administrator struggling with planning day-to-day logistics for your after-school program? Or maybe you have a complete brain freeze when it comes to planning program activities. Or somewhere along the lines of, when it's time to plan your activities, you have no idea where to start. What if I told you you don't have to figure those things out by yourself? Hi, my name is Janice Lee. I'm a former after-school program director and the founder of School After Hours Consulting, where we help youth program managers create impactful programs that ensure student success. With my 20 years of experience, I can definitely help you figure out all those things. Book a free 20-minute discovery call where we can get to know each other a little bit more, see if we can find simple solutions to your current challenges, and if you need it, we can see how we can work together. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to School After Hours podcast. We have our wonderful guest, Gina Prosh, with us. We are talking about positive emotions, how to model it for our children, but also how we can model it for ourselves. So, Gina, last time we left off in our previous conversation, we was talking about doing those things that our children and even our students can see us fail. Like, how important is that when it comes to modeling positive emotions?
I think that if kids can see you struggle, it makes it real for them. There is nothing more frustrating for me than, somebody who can really, really do whatever it is that I'm not able to do swimmingly well. And they're like, oh, just do this. And you're like, well, you might just do this, but I can't just do this, you know? And so taking the time to work through things, I think it becomes really empowering. I garden badly. I always have more weeds than I wanted and that sort of thing. But every year, my son and I would go out to the lawn and garden center and we'd pick these plants and pick those plants. And the first year, everything died. The second year, he's like, we shouldn't get those because those didn't last very long. You know, we should get these other, you know. And so it becomes a way of showing the people in your life, showing the kids in your life that you don't just stop doing something right away because you didn't succeed at it the first time, that it's okay to fail and continue to come back and try things again and again and again. If you play the piano, work on new songs, they always sound better after you've practiced. Those kinds of long-term skills, I think, are really valuable for us as adults, but also for us as parents to encourage our kids to get involved in things that are lifelong projects that they can do. If you teach a kid to play piano when they're little, they can always play the piano, but there's always a new piece of music that's going to be difficult. And so just keep working on it, just keep coming back to it. And eventually, the more you work, the better the results are.
Right. And speaking to that point, like, why is it important to develop emotional resilience in children?
Oh gosh, because life is so daggum hard. You know, life is hard. And you have to have some try in you in order to keep getting back up. You know, there's a wonderful story about Michael Jordan when he's in junior high or the first year of high school or whatever, and he tries out for the varsity team and he doesn't make it. And he contemplates quitting. And, you know, he talks to his mom and his mom's like, no, I think this basketball thing might work out kind of for you. You should keep trying. And, you know, later on, it's one of those things where he realizes that by playing JV, he played more. And by playing more, he got way better than if he would have been on the varsity team but never played. You know, that makes a difference. But it's such a wonderful story. Michael Jordan, I mean, he's an amazing player. He didn't just walk onto the court and have everything always work for him. And I think that those kinds of stories are huge for kids to be reminded of. Everybody struggles, everybody fails, everybody has to get back up again. And you need that emotional resilience to say that your worth as a person isn't defined by any single success or failure that you have. You are more than that. So get back up, try it again.
Right.
Get better at it. Maybe it'll work this time.
Right. And as adults, you know, working out this process of try again, what are some things that we could do to model like positive emotions on the regular basis when we do have those challenging situations?
Okay. I love the notion of having like a joy jar or a blessing basket or whatever you want to call it, where you routinely just write down on a slip of paper the good thing that happened and you toss it in there and you forget about it. And maybe on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, you open that up and you go back through and you look at all of those things. Oh, remember we got coupons for free ice cream cones back in July. Wasn't that cool? You know, or the Lions Club was giving out free peanuts on the side of the road and we were one of the free peanut people. You know, if you write those things down, that becomes a way that you can remember them and go back and remind yourself of them. And that's a big part of it. I think it is hugely important to build it into your daily routine. If you're putting your kids to bed, what's a good thing that happened to you? What's the most exciting thing that happened to you today? What happened to you today that you hope happens again, that you'd like to do over? Don't send them to bed with like, oh, well, I hope that you don't do this and you don't do that, you don't do something else. And it's like, oh, great. You put them to bed and they're like, oh, I'm a loser because of all of these things that I got to fix about myself tomorrow. What are some of the good things? Where did you succeed today? What do you hope is going to happen that's going to be fun to look forward to tomorrow? So if you can go to sleep with those kinds of things, and have breakfast with them. What are you looking forward to today? How can you start to shift the conversation so that you're leading with the positive thing? And often it's just a matter of the language. Instead of have to do something, you get to do something. Instead of don't forget, try to remember. Hey, remember to do this, as opposed to, don't forget to do that. It just changes the way that you interact with the things that you're doing during the day. And those are just little moments.
In addition to that, like, how do we become cultivators of joy and hope when it comes to the students or the children that's around us, like even our own?
I think that you gather more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. That's what my grandma always told me. And I think that we are all drawn to people who are those beacons of joy and hope, because we want to feel, we want to see those things. And the more sweetness that you can give to people, the better. Now, it doesn't mean that you're a pushover, because I'm telling you, my Aunt Holly was no pushover. But at the same time, she was always one who was going to tell you, isn't this the most wonderful lemonade you've ever had in your life? I just think it's wonderful. Because that was what she was looking for. She thought she was going to have some wonderful lemonade. So by golly, she had some wonderful lemonade. And if you're doing those things in a classroom, I think we're going to have some wonderful test results. I think that you get to show me all of the hard work that you've been doing all week. I think that because you've been working hard, things are going to go well for you. And if things don't go well for you, then you're still going to be in a better place to try again. And we'll come up with some new strategies, some things like that. But those, using the language of empowerment and can do, I think is a big thing for teachers. And it's really, really hard in the teach to the test sort of world that we live in, where kids get a lot of negative feedback. The test scores for our class weren't high enough and all of those kinds of things. I love to be able to focus on the things that they're learning rather than the test scores that they're getting.
That's a good one. That is definitely a good one. Well, everyone, that wraps up our show. Thank you so much for being with us today. But before we go, let's go ahead and jump into our Professionals Lounge. Professionals Lounge is a segment of the show that allows guests to share advice with other practitioners in the OST and youth development field about how they can begin growing their gifts and talents, but also develop themselves as professionals in the field. Here's our Professionals Lounge conversation. All right, everyone, we've made it to our Professionals Lounge section. So, Gina, my question for you for Professionals Lounge is, what are some things adults can do to tap into their own joy and build our emotional resilience as educators?
So I think from the educational part of that, I really like to always keep in mind where we started from. When we homeschooled, one of the big things for me was, where did we start at the beginning of the year? Where were we 2 years ago? Where were we 3 years ago? Because sometimes you get so narrow, tunnel visioned, and that broad idea of you are learning. There are moments when you think, is this kid never going to get whatever concept? And somewhere along the road, they get it, and you forgot that it was even a thing that they didn't know how to do. The shoe tying or whatever the thing is. And so the more that you can keep an eye on that long view, and I really think that journaling is a big thing, because it makes it easy to go back. And I'm not super big on, writing out all my thoughts in long paragraphs and that kind of thing. But I do love to take, jotted down notes in a calendar or something like that. Because if you're working with kids and you've got, this is a kid who simply, can't stand still, can't sit still. all of those things is always the wiggle worm when you're trying to do the story hour or whatnot. If that kid by the end of the year is able to sit still or do something that they couldn't do, I mean, that's a really, really big thing. And you've got to set up a mechanism that helps you start to see those bits of progress so that that you can draw their kids' attention to them, like, hey, you're doing really, really great because I remember when you couldn't do this and now you can do this all the time. And that's really wonderful. So I think that that's a component of it. On a personal level, I think we do the same exact things for ourselves. And I think we got to give ourselves a lot of grace. If you are an educator, you are doing incredibly hard work. You are the well of everything that people are coming to, and you're given a cup of water to this one, a cup of water to this one, and a cup of water to that one. So part of it is building a little bit of time into your life every day that is for you, that's good, that rejuvenates you, that fills you back up, because you're not going to be able to give anything out if there's nothing there to draw on. And so if that is, I really love to crochet. I really love to dig in the dirt and go garden. I love to play the piano. I want to play 7 games of solitaire on the computer uninterrupted. Whatever the thing is, trying to build that time, even if it's just short amounts of time into the schedule, can really help, because you've got something to draw on in your own life.
Yes, very true, very true. Well, thank you, Gina, for being with us today. If anyone wants to get in touch with you and ask you more about your Holly Choices series, all the things that have to do with writing, homeschooling, education in general, how would they get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me at www.ginaprosch.com. That's GINAPROSCH.com. And if you are on all of the socials, look for the handle Gina Prosh Writes, except for Twitter, because it's too many characters. So I'm just plain Gina Prosh. Well, I guess X now. I'm on X. So not that I'm there very often, but if you're looking for me, that's what you look for. So Gina Prosh Writes, and GinaProsh.com.
Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of our show. If you liked what you heard and you enjoyed our conversation, make sure that you're following us on YouTube, but also hit that like button so we know what you are enjoying. You can also find us on other podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts if you want to listen to our audio version as well. To get more behind the scenes stuff, make sure that you're following us on our social media accounts, Instagram and Facebook at School After Hours. Well, that's all I have for today. In the words of Mr. Arthur Ashe, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Until next time, y'all. Bye-bye.